Welcome to Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where seasoned leaders and top-tier executives in science, tech, pharma, finance, and innovation open up and get real with me and with you. You'll hear personal stories from key moments of their career arcs and how they've struggled and succeeded when it comes to moving audiences from the red light of risk to the green light of go. I'm Cindy Skalicky, storytelling strategist and author of the best-selling book, Red Light, Green Light, How Top Leaders Present with Polish, Get Buy-in, and Become More Influential. On this podcast, you'll hear from an exceptional invite-only lineup of leaders who've been in the room and at the table when stakes were high, decisions were hard, and their stories had to land. This is where expert minds share stories that shape the future. What's more, you'll walk away with tips you can try immediately to drive the vision of innovation with your team. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Red Light, Green Light. I am your host and your guest today, Cindy Skalicky. And today it's just me. It's me and you. I am excited to share a little bit about myself and my journey and why I started On Point Communications and this podcast after getting a few requests from other listeners and guests. So welcome to my little studio and to my office today. We're just going to chat about storytelling, a little about my journey. I have 3 stories I thought I would share today to help you get a sense of me and how I started this whole thing. I have an unexpected story. I have a surprising start to a story, and I have a never saw it coming story. A never saw it coming story. So let's start with the unexpected story because it gives you a sense. All of these stories will help you understand how I began this journey. For those of you who have never listened to this before and don't know really anything about what we do here, I am originally from the Chicagoland area where I was born and raised. And my dad actually worked for the Chicago Tribune for 30 years. I grew up as the only girl in a family of 3 with 2 older brothers and spent most of my life in the Chicagoland suburbs to begin with before venturing out into an undergraduate degree, followed by a graduate degree at the University of Georgia in the subject of rhetorical criticism. And then I ended up meeting my husband there at the University of Georgia. I took a job in PR in Washington, D.C., where I ended up sharpening my sword on scientific storytelling because the PR firm was science only was their kind of their bent, their niche. They only worked with healthcare clients. It was fantastic. I did skip a step. I worked in global advertising on Michigan Avenue after my undergraduate degree. So I'd had some interesting experiences throughout my early adult life. But let's rewind the clock and I'll tell you about this strange, unexpected story that planted a seed for me around the work that I do now. And it was back in 1992 when I was in high school in Hinsdale. I sang in the choir, and many of my clients today know that singing is a part of my life and it's part of my coaching. Because when you sing and you have a good director like I did in Mr. Wilhelm, when you sing, you learn how to form sound in a unique way. You learn how to be part of a large choir, which I did, and it forces you to listen in a unique way. It forces you to breathe in a unique way. It forces you to present really the song that you're bringing to the audience. And I had an amazing director in Mr. Gary Wilhelm, who really taught us the mechanics of singing in a way that's going to stay with me for my whole life. So, for example, a lot of our clients struggle with enunciation or pronunciation or vowel sounds and how to crisply put the beginnings and ends on sentences. And without overdoing that, you want to find a good balance depending on your speaking situation, right? So when I was singing in the choirs throughout my whole high school years, the first story is about an unexpected ask by my choir director, Mr. Wilhelm. And this happened my junior year when he said, Cindy, I'd really like you to be the opening solo for our spring musical. Actually, I think it was my senior year. And I remember standing there looking at him quizzically and saying, I'm sorry, you want me to what? Do the opening solo? I said, but Mr. Wilhelm, I'm not a soloist. I am a second alto. My voice register is lower. I never had done a solo. I had no interest in doing a solo, to be honest. And I was immediately instilled with the fear of God because this was not something I'd ever really wanted to do, nor felt I was able to do. And of course, that's part of the message, right? Is this coach, if you will, this teacher I had saw something inside of me that I did not see in myself, and he felt that I could do it. So after a lot of, well, some thought and his probing and prodding and me taking a look at the music, I somewhat reluctantly agreed to be that soloist and to embark on this journey of mustering up a lot of courage, a lot of practicing, and just ended up deciding I could do this. The practicing and the rehearsing that I ended up doing for that solo, which was about, I don't know, 30 seconds of singing, but I was going to be in front of everyone I knew, all of my peers, my parents, and I was so nervous that I was going to tank at this. And so I practiced really hard. There were two high notes that were just outside of my range that made me really nervous. And I just remember that the night of the opening show, I was head to toe in this gaudy green dress for the musical, which was called The New Moon. And I was in the practice room, which is something where they put a lot of padding in there. It's a very tiny room with a piano. And I was plunking out the notes on the piano before opening night. And I was feeling really strong and that I could really do well. And I remember being on the stage as the opening night curtain went up. I remember because I was center stage and I was going to start the whole musical. I remember the curtain going up, the big, heavy velvet curtain. I remember looking down at Mr. Wilhelm, who was with the pit, the orchestra pit. We had a full orchestra. It was amazing. And he gave me this wink in his eye as he held his white thin baton and got the orchestra going. I took a big, deep breath from my diaphragm, looked out at the audience who I could hardly see due to the lights, and I began to sing. And wouldn't you know it, that high note that I had practiced and practiced and practiced, I hit. I hit it spot on, and I hit it again the second time. And that rush totally fueled me. And if you've ever had an I nailed it feeling, you know what that feeling is like. It just created such a surge of energy and passion for that moment that I wanted to repeat that moment again and again. And it really, as a young woman, boosted my confidence in a way that I had not been boosted before. So the the story here lends to things you might be doing and facing as a leader, which is, can you find someone in your orbit, someone in your team who might need this type of courage or encouragement from you because you see something in them that they can't see in themselves. So that's just one of the earliest seeds that was planted for me in my high school years. And let's fast forward to, after high school, I went to the middle of Illinois for my earliest years of college. I went to a school called Illinois State University, where I studied elementary education for the first 2.5 years, not knowing what I wanted to do really. And I ended up transferring out of ISU and I went to St. Mary's College at Notre Dame for the rest of my undergraduate degree. And it was there that I learned what rhetoric was. Rhetoric is the science and art of persuasion. And I just determined eventually, thanks to a professor, that I was really good at dissecting messages and messengers. And that is still what I do today. I take a look at messages and messengers and determine what's funky, broken, and sad inside those parts of the engine. And I help people and teens dial those up so that the message is, inside of a real engine of innovation and storytelling and that it's going to hit the audience, just as it's intended. So the audience will be more likely to do what the speaker wants them to do, right? So that's sort of the way that I describe it. But when I it was about, probably 1998 or 1999, I worked for a woman I still am in touch with today. Her name is Ann Dooley, and she was at that time the executive vice president at BBDO Chicago, one of the top 5 ad agencies globally. And I was in account service. And this story is called The Surprising Story because I was uh, unusually afraid of a project that I had no idea how to go about. So maybe you have had a situation like that where you have been given a project or you're facing a project and you have no idea how to do this project. And that's what I faced. I was charged with doing a competitive review for our client, Bayer, Aleve, and I was told that if I could go out to New Jersey, present in front of the entire marketing team there this competitive review for our client. If I could do that well, I was told that was my hurdle to a promotion. But I chose not to get after it. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to get started, and I was overly committed to being perfect at doing this. Um, and we ended up having to move the date I was supposed to go fly out with my team to present because I hadn't started the project. And this is just not like me. If anyone knows me who's listening or has worked with me or has listened to this show, that's not really my energy or vibe, I guess you could say. And my immediate supervisor came to me and said, Cindy, what's going on? Why aren't you doing this project or why haven't I seen the first draft? And I said, well, Michelle, I have no idea how to start this. And eventually I ended up having to go talk to Anne. So Anne was the EVP and a lot of people went to her office and came out sort of maybe in tears occasionally, to be frank. She certainly softened over the years, but I was nervous. I got called down to the office of Anne, and Anne did something really incredible in that moment. I still remember sitting in that meeting with Anne when she said, "Cindy, what's going on? Why haven't you started this project yet?" And I took a deep breath and I was honest. I was authentic and truthful. And I said to her that I had no idea how to start it and that I was feeling nervous. And she said something to me that I remember to this day. She said, Cindy, get it 50% of the way there, show it to me, and I will help you get it the rest of the way. And it made it feel so doable to me, this project, to review all of the competitors of this product line we were about to launch, Aleve Cold and Sinus. Well, there were 20 different competitors in the cold and flu category and in the sinus allergy category. So I was completely overwhelmed. And she said, just get it 50% of the way there. I distinctly remember leaving her office, walking back to mine, which was a cubicle, and feeling a surge of positive energy and optimism that I could do this. So I went to town, I went and did my homework, and I barreled through, watched all the ads, analyzed the markets, the messaging, the competitive standpoint, and fast forward to the moment I'm out in New Jersey at Bayer, presenting to a room of hundreds of mostly male managers with my personal, teammates in the front row, so to speak. I delivered a 90-minute presentation with probably 85 slides with complete command, and I had rehearsed it like like nothing else, and I totally nailed it, and I felt this real energy around public speaking and presenting that I hadn't felt at that level before. And it gave me such a window into what might be possible down the road for me. And Anne looked at me straight in the eye at the end of the meeting, shook my hand, and said, "Cindy, you nailed that." And that's really where the I nailed it feeling was born, which we often use here at On Point Communications. So I wonder if you have a moment of nailing something and feeling amazing about work you put in and the product or outcome that you brought for an audience or for a team. Maybe it wasn't presenting or public speaking, but you know that feeling of really lining everything up beautifully and having it go just as planned. And that's just a great, great feeling. And, a lot of hiccups were in the way before that, a lot of barriers, a lot of mindset barriers in both of these stories, right? Both the unexpected story about singing and the surprising story about this competitive review that I did nail and get promoted for. So that was another, big moment in my path toward what I'm doing today. The final story is really how On Point began in the first place because it's such an unlikely story and a complete surprise to me at all. I grew up with a mom who stayed at home and a dad who went to work. And my brothers and I went to school, and my mom was home after school. And that's what I envisioned myself doing once I began my family after I got married. I did get married, and my husband and I have four children who are currently 17 and up. And we had four children over the span. I had four children, 5.5 years from top to bottom. I was a very busy mom early on in my parenting journey with my husband. And around 2015, my children were all in elementary school by then, and I had this chunk of time during the day. My husband's an entrepreneur. He began a clinical practice as a psychologist, way back when, while we were still having the kids. And the idea crossed my mind that I should go look for a part time job of some sort so I could be home with my kids in the after school time zone or time frame. So I went out looking for part time jobs at places where part time work would be easy to do as a sort of come and go thing. Put the work down, not take it home. So literally, we're talking about front desk at the gym, at the local workout gym where I already went, or becoming an assistant to someone in the business setting. And nothing was opening for me. No doors were opening. And finally, my husband said, I know a presentation skills coach, and I bet you would really enjoy talking with her about her journey. Well, I had taught public speaking classes at the University of Georgia when I was in graduate school. And that sounded like a really cool idea. So I took a look at her website and my mouth fell. Absolutely, my mouth fell. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I could do anything in the whole wide world, I would do this. I didn't even know this was a thing. So that's how, green, if you will, I was about the possibilities around the work I do now 11 years ago. No idea, right? Was so busy raising a family, did not have my pulse on industry and what I could possibly do because I never thought about it. I didn't intend to work or climb any kind of a career ladder I just didn't think that's what was in front of me. When I had lunch with Tanis and sat with her, we began to talk about things that we both enjoy doing. And she asked me what I like about messaging and what I enjoyed about graduate school. And when I began telling her, she got very interested. And by the end of she said, Cindy, you said you're good at stitching stories together and writing scripts. And that's, kind of that content development side of things. And she said, there aren't very many people out there who are very good at that, which was a clue for me. Put it in my back pocket. I didn't know that. And she said, I have a TEDx talk I'm giving next month, and I really want to nail it. Will you coach me on the storyline? And I had no idea how I would do it or what I would prepare for her, but I said, absolutely, I will. So when Tanis and I worked together for our sessions and I set up a rehearsal for her, we got her to the TEDx arena the following month. She totally nailed her talk on stage, presented beautifully. She tugged on my sleeve at the end of the evening while we watched the other speakers and said, Cindy, you shouldn't be doing part-time jobs. You should be doing this because you're really gifted at this. And I thought, what? I have no idea. I don't know the first thing about starting my own business. But I called my husband the following day on the front porch of our house and said, Hun, Tana said I should start a business. What do you think? And he said, you would be so great at that. And friends, that's how On Point Communications was born, on the front porch of my house in Fort Collins, Colorado in 2015 on a September afternoon. And here we are. I began the work with early stage founders initially, helping them with their investor pitch presentations. I ended up then working with fund managers at the VC level, and they were pitching LPs and limited partners. And then we worked on other kinds of messages with researchers and scientists in commercialization labs at universities or government labs like NREL and other labs where innovation was happening. And that's the seedling of the book. The first chapter of Red Light, Green Light is about my work with innovators. And you are probably an innovator of some kind listening to this episode and to this podcast because you are a creative thinker. You're probably an engineer, someone who loves to noodle ideas and languages and stories. And it's just been the most amazing wild ride. Now we work with leaders at the highest levels of some of the largest, most influential organizations in the world where, technologies are happening from AI to veterinary pharma to, you know, digital communications and data centers. All sorts of different leaders are calling on us to help with their senior leadership teams, with board presentations, with panel presentations, with strategy execution reviews, with executive presence skills and keynotes and one-on-one conversations and team building. You name it. We are in it to win it with our clients. And we really love helping leaders in science and technology specifically elevate their storytelling game. So when we talk with leaders in these episodes, the stories that you're hearing, it's to get the same kind of stories out of them that I just told you. I want to know the bumps and bruises of people's journeys from early in their career. And I want to know how they threaded those stepping stones together toward the career place they're in right now. And I want to know what charges them up and lights up their lives and faces when they are in the midst of doing something great that they're particularly gifted at and uniquely suited for. And I'm just really feeling like we're getting started here at On Point after 10 and a half years. We've got so much more work to do. I just want to thank all of you for listening. Thank all of you for contributing guests we've had. I would love to hear from you. If you have a guest you'd like for us to interview on the show, it'd be fantastic to learn about them. We've had people from all walks of life. We've had comedians, we've had Olympic gold medalists. I've had best-selling authors like Ellen Patricoff. I'm interviewing Michael Michalowicz, the author of The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur and The Pumpkin Plan and many other books. We've had athletes, we've had athletic coaches, we've had um, scientists and all sorts of people who have done just incredible, innovative work, leadership, mindset shifts, and we can't wait to keep going. Thanks for asking me to come in and share some of these stories. I hope that in each episode you find a tidbit that you can, take and run with, or it just brings some brightness and lightness to your day, and that we're bringing something valuable to you as our audience. If there's anything that I can answer in questions, please email me. You can always find me at Cindy at onpoint-communications.com. That's Cindy at onpoint-communications.com. And we're here to serve you and share your stories. Thanks everyone for listening, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.